Incy Wincy Spider climbed up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Spiders are members of the order Arachne, and they are members of the class Arachnida, along with things like scorpions, ticks, and mites. And spiders are definitely the most famous of the arachnids. Spiders are obviously one of the most recognisable invertebrates to us, if not one of the most recognisable animals, not necessarily for the right reasons, but we'll get to that. So spiders are pretty recognisable for having a very distinct body shape. They've only got two segments as opposed to a lot of other invertebrates, especially insects, which would have three. The 8 legs are obviously a bit of a giveaway. All arachnids have 8 legs, but theirs are the ones that are most pronounced, possibly because the segmented parts of their body are quite small comparatively, but far from having a generic shape, which I think we often think of spiders as all looking alike. There's a wide variety of spiders. There's loads of different spiders that do various things. There's spiders that build webs, there's spiders that build trap doors, there's ones that are social, ones that are quite intelligent. Portia is a genus of spiders that is actually quite intelligent. They've been demonstrated to actually have learned behaviour from different hunts they have. Quite interesting. Spiders are pretty much found everywhere around the world, apart from Antarctica. Every major landmass that they could feasibly live on, they're found there, and they're among the most abundant types of animals in the world. I think they're the 7th most abundant form of life on Earth. That's pretty crazy, but then I guess insects are pretty abundant, so, you know, it kind of makes sense. And there's various interesting behaviours about spiders. One of the more interesting behaviours, I think, is actually their mating behaviour. So there's quite a lot of species of spiders where the females will actually cannibalise the male. Therefore, in order to prevent them from getting eaten, a lot of male spiders have these quite intricate displays, like little dances they do. That's quite common throughout spiders. A lot of different spiders do that, not just the flashier ones like the jumping spiders. A lot of them do that. And that's a really interesting thing. It's not something people tend to think of. People tend to think of spiders as being really creepy and quite scary, but that's actually quite a delicate behaviour they have. It's quite interesting. And obviously spiders, for the most part, are predatory. There's only one species of spider that isn't a predator, and that is the Bugira kiplingi, which is actually herbivorous. It actually eats acacia seeds. The vast majority of spiders are obviously hunters. They hunt a variety of prey, usually insects, like small animals. The biggest thing the biggest spider can take is probably a mouse or a small lizard. And there's a lot of variety in the ways that they hunt. As I said, there's trapdoor spiders that lie in wait. There's spiders that leave little lures out to reel prey in. Probably the most famous examples of a spider's mechanism to catch prey is the web. The spider web is one of the most iconic things about spiders. It's one of the most iconic things that are built by an animal in nature, I would say. Probably more so than like, say, your big termite colonies. The spider web is a really intricate design and it's quite iconic. It's obviously an interconnected structure of silk, which is designed to catch passing insects, anything from a fly to a moth, and then the spider will move in and eat it. So spiders, like pretty much all invertebrates, don't have mouths. The spider actually has to dissolve its victims' insides and then drink them. That is how all spiders feed. And obviously, there's a lot of spiders that are venomous. And that's where we start to get into our perception of spiders. So the vast majority of spiders have some form of venom, but this is designed to kill prey much smaller than us. And for that reason, very little spider venom is actually dangerous to us. Actually, there's very few spiders that are actually big enough or have powerful enough fangs to actually penetrate our skin if they bit us. So, to be honest, spiders aren't really a major threat to us. There are spiders out there that can kill people. The vast majority of them are in Australia. They're things like your redbacks, your wandering spiders, your funnel webs, things like that, black widows outside of Australia. But the vast majority of the really deadly spiders are in Australia, weirdly. Don't really know why that is. But it is worth noting that certain species of spider in Australia are not as deadly as they used to be. Since the invention of antivenom, only one person has died from a redback spider bite in Australia. So, you know, that's something. But around the rest of the world, there's very few species of spider that actually can kill people. There are a couple, but most can't. In Africa, there aren't any spiders that can kill you. There are spiders that can bite you and, you know, give you a very painful bite and can give you a bite that will lead to permanent damage. There are species that can, you know, result in necrosis. But by and large, they're not a major threat to us. And yet, with regards to animal phobias, arachnophobia, the fear of spiders, is by far the most prevalent throughout all humans, I would say. I'd say everybody knows someone who's scared of spiders, at least one person, probably a handful. So like snakes, spiders are small animals that can get into our dwellings, and if we come across them and they are dangerous, then, you know, it can be bad for us. But while there are a lot of deadly snakes that do kill people every year, quite a lot of people, not that many people get killed by spiders, and there's a very, very minuscule number of spiders that are actually a threat to humans, so I don't really think that's the reason we're scared of them. I think ultimately the reason we're scared of them is the way they move. Much like snakes, which obviously slither with no legs at quite some speed, we generally don't like animals that move in a way that's very different from us, and spiders are kind of the opposite of a snake in that they've got so many legs that are quite, you know, long and spindly, and they're still able to move quite quickly. We don't like that at all. We really don't like that. We really don't like animals that we can't identify with, and there's not a huge amount to identify with a spider, I don't think. So while there is some legitimate reasons for some phobias developing, like the fear of snakes, which, you know, kind of makes sense because a lot of snakes are deadly. Spiders, it's a bit more silly. I don't think there's really a concrete reason why we should be scared of them. There really isn't one, but it is something that a lot of people have just a very visceral reaction to. But despite the fact that a lot of people don't like them, spiders pretty much live wherever we do. If you live in a home, you share that home with multiple spiders, realistically. A lot of the time you don't see them, but occasionally they do pop out, especially when they're in like the sink or the bath. That seems to be a very common place to find them, but that's simply because it's a place where they just can't escape from. Generally baths and sinks are actually quite slippery because there's a lot of water in them. They just can't get out, and a lot of people think they just come out the plug and they just flush them back down, like they're doing them a favour. But actually you're just drowning it, so you maybe don't do that. Spiders live in our homes generally pretty unintrusively. Like, they don't really want to be found by us, they just want to live their lives. And spiders generally get quite a bad rap. Throughout fiction, there's very few examples of positive spiders. It's actually a bit of a trope in fantasy novels for there to be a big, evil, scary spider, whether that be Aragog in Harry Potter or the Shelob in Lord of the Rings. There's very few examples of good spiders out there. Generally, they're quite a malevolent force. A rare example is Charlotte in Charlotte's Web, who's actually quite a benevolent figure to Wilbur. She basically writes messages in her web, basically hyping him up so he won't get slaughtered. And when she dies at the end of the book, it's actually really sad. In mythology as well, there's been various legends of spiders that have been a bit more positive. In Greek mythology, Arane was a woman who's very good at weaving tapestries, and Athena was jealous of her, basically destroyed her tapestries, and she hanged herself, but she was resurrected as a spider because she felt sorry for her, which would indicate that being turned into a spider isn't necessarily a bad thing. And there's obviously the famous Scottish legend of Robert the Bruce that went to a cave and saw a spider continuously falling down off its web and then climbing back up and trying to, save itself. Like, that's obviously quite an inspirational story linked to a spider. So, spiders aren't that bad. The concept of a spider web was really important in Buddhist mythology because the web was a symbol of how interconnected everything is. And it's actually interesting that we even use that today in our modern language, because every time you go on the internet and you're searching something, you're searching on the World Wide Web. The idea of a web that connects everyone and everything very much comes from a spider. So if it wasn't for spiders, it would be WW something else. Silk's obviously been quite an important thing for a lot of people. Spider silk's actually a really varied substance. There's like 7 or 8 different types of silk, and spiders use it for a wide variety of things, not just catching prey. Young spiders will use ballooning silk to travel in the wind. There's spiders that eat their own silk. There's spiders that use it to lay trails for themselves. There's a wide variety of things that silk's used for, so spiders are actually pretty important. Spiders were actually sent to space to see if they could still construct webs. And it wasn't easy for them in zero gravity, but they still managed it, which is a true testament to how impressive spiders are. So yeah, spiders are really cool, as I say about every animal that I do these about. Spiders are very unique animals. There's a lot of variation among spiders. Vast majority of hunters, though not all of them. The web that they create is very iconic for us, and when we don't really like spiders, we can live with them, and we do, even if that is begrudgingly. And I think spiders have been given a really bad reputation throughout literature, but mythology, generally speaking, wasn't always as unkind to them as they are now, and maybe we should take a few steps back in that regard to look at spiders for what they are, which is, really impressive animals that are really cool, that can benefit us, because very few spiders actually can kill people, but they are very capable of predating on a lot of other animals, like various species of flies, which carry diseases that can kill us, so maybe having spiders around isn't such a bad thing. I don't know. So yeah, let me know in the comments below what you think of spiders. Have you got any spider stories? I think everyone's seen a spider multiple times. If you've lived in a house, as I say, you've probably seen a spider many times. I've seen spiders quite a lot throughout my life, and I don't have any specific stories other than that, I see them quite often, as do most people. But if you've got any specific stories, let me know. Let me know what you'd like me to talk about in the future. I've obviously got a list, but if you let me know, it might bump them up, so please do. And yeah, as ever, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, or don't if you don't want to. It's perfectly fine. And I'll see you next time, and goodbye.